Okay, Ryan, see if you can join.
Yeah, I've joined. It's saying waiting for hosts to start for me.
So I've hit. Can you see welcome?
No.
You can't?
No. Hold on, let me just reload it real quick. Yeah, no.
What?
Yeah, I can't see anything.
You can't see anything?
It says the event will start soon. Wait for the host to start.
I've gone start.
Okay, there we go.
Has it got welcome?
This is live. Wait, hold on, loading. Yes, welcome will be starting shortly. Cool. There isn't an option for me to mute anything or.
No, you're not, because you're not talking.
Oh, okay, cool. So I don't need to. Okay, fine.
Does it say how many people there are? Oh, there's
5.
5 people already. Well, 2 of you.
2 of us, isn't there?
3 actually, because Martin's on there as well.
That's fine. Come on.
Oh, Barvish is on there.
Who?
Barvish, no.
How do you know? Oh, this guy. I was like, how do you know that? So at what time do you want to paste the question thingy?
Just once you get going.
Okay, cool.
Yeah, paste it.
Ten people.
All right, calm down. What the hell are you doing?
Oh, I'm not
Stop stressing out.
I'm not stressed about, sorry. I thought that's the good thing, the positive.
Yeah, I know. I can't see because he's in charge of it, so I can't see who's here.
Okay. Hold on a minute. Shall we smash it?
Sure, Bismillah.
Oh, turn that off.
Hello. Can you guys hear me?
No, it's not working now.
Right. Hello. Right. Can you guys hear me? I'm just trying to get a thumbs up to see if I can. We're trying something new here, so I'm just wondering to make sure people can hear me. Okay, brilliant. Okay, so the one thing to be aware of is that whenever you're trying new technology, sometimes the mics don't work so well. So welcome everybody. I'm just going to give it 1 minute, and then I'm gonna kick off, and we'll go from there. Okay, so just give me 2 ticks. You're going to have to just bear with me for 2 ticks while I wait for some people to join. And I've got my marketing team in the background, so you might find me talking to them in a bit. So if that happens, please don't worry. And while we're waiting for users, listeners, attendees to join, if you do have any questions, first thing to do is just to put them up into the comment section. And then what I'll do is I will do my best to get to them at the end. I tend to find that an hour is not enough to go through everything that we're trying to do. There's 30 years of experience, which I'm trying to give you in an hour, which isn't a lot of time. And we're going to post, you can DM me if you've got any questions, by the way, and we're going to post my email address. So if I don't get to your question, please feel free to email me. And then what I'll do is I'll make sure I respond back, or we'll get on a call or something like that together. So just bear with me for a couple of seconds. We're going to give it 1 more minute or a couple more minutes, and then we'll get going. All right, while we're doing that, I'm just going to do a mic test. So Okay, chaps. So let's get cracking. All right. So first of all, welcome. Now, if you're here, it's because you're interested in delivering projects much faster than you've been led to believe. Okay, and I'm going to kind of talk you through what we're about, what we do, and how. Okay, hold on. Just mic check, guys. I'm getting people telling me that they can't hear me. Can you guys hear me? Okay. Can you just drop me a thumbs up if you can hear me, please? Yeah. Okay. All right. Brilliant. Okay. All right. Let's get cracking then. All right. So where was I? Yes. So if you're here, it's because you want to deliver your projects much faster than you've been led to believe. And in the next 45 minutes to an hour, I'm going to talk to you through how we do it and how we help organizations deliver and accelerate their delivery by up to 100% or more in just 90 days. All right. Okie dokie. So bit about me then. Welcome. My name is Jay. I'm founder and CEO of Fractal Systems. We're a delivery consultancy, and if you're here, as I mentioned, you want to learn how you can really accelerate your project delivery and your project performance. I've got over 30 years of success in helping startups, scale-ups, and enterprises hit tough delivery targets with absolutely minuscule budgets and constrained resources. Now, what makes us different is that the majority of our work, around 85 to 90% of our work, has been spent in the recovery and turnaround space. And that's important because when you're doing that kind of work, you don't have time to try the thousands of tools and techniques that the project management, the agile management space has got. You learn very quickly which tools work and which tools don't. All right. And over time, in our case, over 30 plus years, you decide, you sort of deduct and deduce patterns that work again and again and again. All right. So that's basically what we're about and sort of what makes us different from the standard firms that you meet out there. Now, look, happily, you don't have to wait for your program or project to get into hot water. You can be proactive and you can start to do the right things today. Now, as I keep mentioning, most of our clients tend to see a minimum of 100% improvement in terms of delivery cadence, which I know sounds crazy. But actually, what's even more astonishing is that when we help our clients learn these tools, learn these methods and these approaches, that they themselves take it to the next level. And then they come back to us telling us, hey, Jay, when you work with us, yes, we did get 100% faster, but we are now able to go 3x, 4x, 5x faster. And we're getting things out on time and to budget faster than we've ever done before. And I know that sounds astonishing, but that's what our clients are currently telling us because they know their context and they know how to make this stuff work. And that's important, right? When you get a good process and the strategy is right, you should start to see consistent gains, consistent speed over time. Now, look, as I mentioned, I'm not going to be able to squeeze 30 years of experience in an hour. So we have an approach, which is our mission management mechanics approach, which I'm going to take you through. I'm just going to be focusing primarily on one section. All right, I'm going to walk you through that, which is probably one of the most important pieces of this, actually. And then in subsequent webinars, I'll take you through the rest. But if you stay to the end, I'll let you know how you can get your hands on some of our core frameworks and principles that you can use in your firm. And look, the key thing for me is that at the end of this, you've got at least 3 or 4 principles that you can take to the office tomorrow, and you can go for it. Okay. Now, the thing is that because we've got, although we've got tons of experience in the financial services space, we've also worked with startups and scale-ups in the digital space. We've worked with teachers, startups in the teaching space, in education and government. These things work wherever you go. All right. And look, it's not theory, right? It works again and again and again. As an example, we helped a £1 billion revenue generating part of the business for Sarah to unlock tremendous speed gains and build predictable delivery when things were on the line. We helped John, COO at Schroders, 3x his team's delivery capability. And we built accelerated delivery capability for Frank, COO of Von Tobel Asset Management out there in Zurich, to help their teams beat target and deliver on time. And that was done during COVID. And so these processes and these tool sets work wherever. Actually, interestingly enough, Frank has been in the game for a long time. And he mentioned to us that, look, over 20 years, he's never given a firm a recommendation. He's very kindly given us a recommendation because of the work that we did to help support his teams at October. All right. And as I mentioned, please don't get alarmed. I know these are some large enterprise type firms that we're showcasing here. This stuff works with startups, with scale-ups, as well as with enterprises. Okay. And I'm going to focus on core principles and practices today that will hopefully make a difference in your delivery. Now, the last thing any of you guys need is for me to be just talking at you. So I'm going to be asking you some questions through. So what I'm hoping is going to happen is you're going to be responsive back. So I'm going to talk to you a bit about what makes us different. Look, the key is we fix the system. It's not just focusing on people or coming in and nailing delivery teams or anything along those lines, okay? It's about mastery at every level of the organization. We're not religious fanatics. We don't think that Agile is the only way forward or PMP is the only way forward. So the key to us and the key to our approach is that we fuse methods and frameworks in a way that works for the firm, all right? And finally, it's more than just mindset. You tend to hear about people saying, hey, you need to have an Agile mindset or a delivery mindset and all these sorts of things, or even a leadership mindset, right? But the point is this, is that mindset alone doesn't do the job, okay? You need to know how to actually do the work. So we're firm believers in mindset plus skill set equals the delivery expertise and the acceleration that you're looking for, all right? So that's what we're all about, and that's what makes us different. I mean, just as an example, right? We had one client that had 30 plus teams doing everything agile. They were running PI planning. They were doing safe. Everything was going like clockwork. But if you were to give their teams a letter, right, they could not get that letter to the post box, right? When we came in to work with them, we looked at what they were doing. We took a holistic view, and then within 2 sprints, they were refocused, replanned, and within 90 days, they were delivering like clockwork. They went from 3-month projects that took a year to deliver, right, with over 5 times the budget, to delivering on time every time. Okay, so this stuff is doable. This stuff is easy once you know how. Okay, so as I said, why are you here? Look, if you've been in the delivery space, you've probably seen this stuff, right? You've probably seen projects that constantly stall. You've seen teams that are super busy, but nothing getting done, or they're stuck in treacle. People are working harder and harder and harder, working later and later and later. Still nothing gets moving. You see endless scope creep and planning and constant replanning, then more planning. And then whatever the planning happens or rebaselining happens, within 60, 90, 30 days, the whole thing goes pear-shaped again. And you've got to replan again, or the whole thing has gone out the windows. All right. You tend to see things like every fix creating more problems. Right, so you don't have permanent fixes. And if you're doing agile, well, hey, that just means even more meetings. So before, when you were dying from meetings before, now you're doing Scrum, you're meeting like 18 times a day, and things aren't moving. All right, you're doing stand-ups, retros, sprints, and everything. You're doing all that stuff up the wazoo, coming out your ears, and still nothing's happening. Your delivery dates are a running joke. Right, leadership teams think, yes, this is the date that we're going to deliver. Everyone else knows the truth. And finally, stakeholders are losing trust. Now, as I mentioned, these sorts of things are things that most people in the delivery space tend to see, okay? So if you're here, you've seen something like this before. And as I mentioned, right, the project management space has been going for a while, okay? So you probably know that you don't need more tools, okay? You don't need more Confluence, you don't need more Jira, you don't need more Teams or Slack or MS Project or thousands of dashboards, okay? More tools will not save your delivery, okay? You need clarity and execution. You need a scalable approach, okay? You need delivery that actually delivers and works for your context, works for your business, works for the type of people you're working with, works for the type of business you are, and works for the customers that you're delivering to. Predictability is possible. It's not a luxury. You can deliver on time and to target, right? It's possible. It's about putting in the right process that works. And finally, look, if your system can't scale, neither can your business. So as you become more successful, your system has to be able to flex. Your delivery system, your project delivery system has to be able to flex. And if it doesn't, then your business is going to be limited. All right. The other thing to mention is that project management, project delivery is even more important now than it's ever been. Why? Well, because there's a downturn. Most people are worried about an economic downturn. And what happens during an economic downturn is that people tend to become far more value driven. They want a lot more value for their money, right? So for their pound, they want, what am I getting? So the firms that survive are the ones that are able to detect value and what's important to the customer and deliver that value faster than the competition. So that means not only do you need to know what your customer wants, you have to get it out there before the other guys do, right? And if you can't do that well, then you're probably going to go the way of the dodo, right? We've seen loads of examples of firms that had phenomenal delivery capabilities, or they were phenomenal businesses, but they just couldn't get things out to market. And at the end of the day, they lost, right? So project delivery capability has to be a core competency for most businesses. I don't know any business that, as they're scaling and as they're growing, does not need a core competency of organizing their people to deliver stuff and get it out the door. Okay, so question for you then. All right. You've got to do some typing here. What is the percentage of major to large projects or complex projects that fail to deliver their targeted results on time and on budget? So just chuck your answers in the chat. So is it 10% of major projects that fail? Is it 50%? Is it 100%? What is it? What is the percentage of major, large, or complex projects that fail to deliver their targeted results on time and on budget? What's the percentage? So start typing, chaps. Let me see it. Okay, I've just been told that there's a lag, so I'm just going to wait a bit. Brilliant. 70%, 80%, 68%. Wow, 70%. Just to let everyone know, right, that if you're saying 70, 80%, that you're telling that's actually very telling, okay? And you're probably psychic. So Dirk says 80%. There's some mysterious LinkedIn users that are saying 50%, 70%, 40%. Okay. All right. I'll tell you the answer. All right. Let's go. So first things first. Most projects, right, will stall around the 90-day mark. Okay. If you're doing Gen AI projects, then you're going to be seeing a 50% failure rate. All right. From various reports, the minimum amount of projects that tend to fail is around 70%. All right. That's just the minimum. Okay. So what's that telling us? That's telling us that project failure is the norm, not the exception. If you're going to start a project that within 90 days or slightly longer, what you're going to start to see is that your project is going to start to go off kilter. That's incredible, right? We're in the knowledge management space, we're in the knowledge delivery space, and project management is actually, or project delivery, the likelihood of it actually failing is much higher than chance. So failure is normal, all right? So that should be a massive red flag for most of us that work in the business space. Now, just to add insult to injury, there's this very clever chap called Professor Ben Flyberg. Oh, hold on. There we go. Who's the Professor of Major Project Management at Oxford's Sade Business School. He's gone off and done some really thorough research, and he's come back with an astonishing statistic, which is 99.5% of major projects will fail to deliver their targeted results on time and on budget. And in a minute, I'm going to ask you the question why, but if you just think about what that means, if you're doing complex work, the likelihood of you succeeding is very, very slim. And that's crazy, right? We've been in the knowledge management space for a long, long time. And if you look around us, buildings go up and projects get delivered and all these sorts of things. But the challenge is that we still, as a group, have not been able to figure this out, okay? Professor Ben Flyberg has done some amazing research and actually has recently come up with things being much, much worse for IT projects. IT projects tend to be the highest risk type of projects, okay? So this underlines that project delivery to time and budget is super hard. Failure is normal, okay? And IT projects get the worst of it all right? So in the meeting chat, Give me the 3 to 5 top reasons why you think projects fail. What are the 3 to 5 reasons that projects fail? Is it teams are terrible? Is it no one knows what they're doing? Is it planning is horrible? What is it? What are the reasons why projects fail? Hello, can you guys hear me? Okay, brilliant. Process complexity, requirements, dependency management, yes. Poor planning, unrealistic timelines, yes. Yes. Peter, exactly, 100%. Adam's been there. Stan Rudy's been there. Yeah, brilliant. Lack of clarity of requirements, excellent. What else? Is it just requirements? So if I gave you perfect requirements, would you be able to deliver on time every time? Yep. Overly ambitious planning or expectations? Yes. Agreed. Stakeholder engagement not consistent? Yes. Lack of alignment? Wow. Lack of alignment between business and IT teams? Absolutely. Lack of clarity on all the objectives? Yes, Cynthia. Not getting feedback early from stakeholders, organizational resistance? Wow. Absolutely right. Absolutely right. Yes, yes. All of these things are absolutely true. All of these things are absolutely true. Okay. So you've been around the block, right? Lack of resources, requirements change. So let's talk about it. Okay, so why do projects fail? So if you've been in the space, you'll have mentioned things in the team space. Yeah. You're going to mention things like unclear requirements or outcomes. We don't know what we're delivering. Estimation and planning. Normally, there's been poor planning, right? Or not thorough enough planning. If you're in the agile space, then you're probably not doing very much planning at all, okay? Or the estimation is far too aggressive, right? Or you're getting pressured to deliver at timelines that are not realistic. Collaboration, silos, bottlenecks, risk management, all of these sorts of things, failure to learn, all of these sorts of things, under-resourced, under-skilled, cookie-cutter processes, which are probably one of the most poisonous pieces, right, when it comes to teams and what they're doing. Let's move on. Then you're going to probably talk about managers. All right, you'll talk about managers. You'll talk about management teams or managers filtering or distorting information, being useless, creating bottlenecks, trying to filter all information through them, resisting any kind of change, failing to empower teams, or managing or micromanaging or managing through fear and intimidation. Those are the sorts of things that we tend to see from managers, right? So we've covered off the teams, we've covered off the managers. Those are the sorts of things that we tend to see in the management space. Now, I'm pretty sure you guys have seen most of this. And finally, what happens in the leadership space? Inconsistent vision and strategic alignment. Now, why are we doing what we're doing? Whatever projects we're doing, they don't line up to the company strategy. We don't know where we're going. What's this got to do with what the overall strategy is? Poor engagement. Leaders don't turn up. They don't turn up, they don't help. These are the kind of people that say, don't bring me problems, bring me solutions. Well, that's fantastic. Lack of accountability and responsibility. This is whenever something goes wrong, it's your fault. Regardless of whether it's anyone else's fault, it's your fault. You're the delivery guys, it's your fault. A failure to bring a safe, accountable culture, right? Shooting the messenger, ignoring risk. It doesn't matter whatever the risk is, you're on the hook to get it delivered. I don't care how long you have to work. I remember meeting one CEO, one group of people actually, that were working with a particular CEO. And they said whenever they delivered or exceeded expectations, what the CEO would say to them is that's brilliant, now do more. Okay, now do more. So these guys, these teams, best interests at heart for the firm. They're working 18-hour days, 19-hour days, not seeing their families, delivering these mission impossibles. Okay, and what do they get at the end of it? Do more, do more. Do more with no more. Toxic leadership. Okay, so then how do firms, we all know this, right? We've seen this. So how do firms fix this? What do they normally do first? Well, they hit the teams, okay? They go, oh, it's the teams. The teams are terrible, right? Let's start at the team level, right? Let's give them training, tons of training and new frameworks. Let's bring in Jira. Let's bring in Confluence. Let's bring in Microsoft. Let's add AI, right? Teams get taught agile and AI and lean and beaten to go faster. They get training, they get coaching, they get mentoring. They get taught secret frameworks like agile, special agile, DSDM, Kanban, less safe, scaled agile, value streams, PMP, TOC, CP, all of these sorts of things. The teams get absolutely bombarded with stuff, okay? And teams are made to feel like they're at fault, that they're terrible. That doesn't work. So what's the next thing that starts happening? It must be toxic leadership. Okay, so let's address the leaders. Let's go through leadership mindset training. Let's talk about collaboration, serve. Let's talk about transformational leadership. Let's talk about, what would you be? If you were the best leader, what was that person like? All these sorts of things. Give away authority. Let's give away our trust. All of these sorts of things. All right. That's what happens. The leadership mindset gets addressed. Okay. Now remember, mindset. Okay. Not necessarily skill set. Okay. And then finally, right? So that's layer by layer, right? They'll do the teams and then they'll do the leaders. And then finally, they'll get around to managers. Okay. Managers. Well, if they do, most people tend to ignore management teams. Managers get told that they are evil and unnecessary and surplus to requirements. Okay. No one thinks of managers as potential solutions to terrible delivery challenges. So they get told that they're not useful, not needed, and teams should be self-organizing. They should be able to do whatever they need to do, however they need to do it, without you, Mr. Manager. And you are no longer needed. And the result of that is the frozen middle, which we're going to talk about in a minute. Okay, so this tends to be how organizations attack these delivery challenges, layer by layer by layer. Okay. All right. Hopefully that's clear. All right. So why doesn't this work then? Why doesn't this work? The problem is that when you're addressing these sorts of challenges with piecemeal solutions, you're tackling symptoms rather than underlying causes. Okay. Organizations are systems. They're organic, comprehensive systems that live and breathe. So what you need is a systematic framework to diagnose and address the root causes of project failure at every level from frontline to the C-suite. Okay. So as an example, when we see change just focused on one layer, like on the team side of things, right? Teams will learn all this great stuff. What tends to happen is those teams are told they need to be responsive, they need to be making their own decisions, they need to be self-organizing. For those teams to do that, they need autonomy and they need to be empowered for fast decision-making responsibility. They need to be given the opportunity to be able to do that. But if you haven't involved the management teams and managers are being told that they're surplus to requirements and they're irrelevant, they will become fearful of their jobs, okay? And they will stop the change. They will prevent the change from happening. Why? Because they've got mortgages to pay, they've got children to feed, all right? There's an existential crisis for management teams. And managers themselves need direction and authority from leaders. And if you're dealing with toxic leadership teams, then what happens? The whole thing unwinds step by step by step, layer by layer by layer. And I think all of you guys have seen this, right? So from the very top, if mission's unclear and if the leadership is intimidating, that causes a knock-on effect to the management layer. If leaders are terrifying managers and managers are trying to get something done, they will then terrify their teams. They will work through fear. They will learn from their senior leadership teams, from their senior sponsors, and they will work through fear to intimidate and aggressively push their teams, okay? They won't worry about risks. They won't focus on what needs to happen. They're terrified they'll have to do whatever they need to do. The whole point is, how much can we get out of the system? What can we do? And they'll focus on things like resource optimization and utilization. They won't worry so much about governance. The stick is all you need, okay? And finally, what does that do to teams? Well, in the mechanics space, teams are getting pushed to go harder and harder and harder. They don't get a chance to think of things through. You get silos, you get poor planning, you get all sorts of shortcuts and all these kind of problems that don't get resolved. Teams themselves will go to a certain perspective or to a certain point, and then they need help to be able to change the organization. All right. And if managers aren't engaged and leaders aren't engaged, then what happens is you get into this vicious circle, you get into this vicious cycle. Teams won't deliver. Leaders get even more stressed out and they try to put more and more pressure through the system. And then you get this vicious cycle. Okay. Now, I know that sounds terrible, but this is what we tend to see in lots of firms. And it's one of the reasons why most of you have said that failure is 70, 80, 90% when it comes to project success. So the Fractal system manages mission management and mechanics from an organizational standpoint. Now, behind each of these sections is a massive toolkit, okay? The how is important. So we won't be able to go through every single approach and tool set and tool that addresses these issues. What we're going to focus on today, just because we're halfway through, is the mission layer. Okay, we're going to talk about the top of the house, which is part of the business, which is probably the most important piece. But before we get into that, I want to ask you a question. So, according to research, okay, what is the success rate of projects with highly engaged sponsors versus those with weak sponsors? So, according to research, right, what is the success rate of projects with highly engaged executive sponsors versus those with weak sponsorship? Is it A, is it B, is it C? So A would be, if you've got engaged sponsors, then you're going to get a 60% success rate, and without it, it's 30%. B would be success is 67%, without it, it's 18%. And C would be, if you've got engaged sponsors, then 85% of the projects succeed, and without it, it's 10%. So which one is it? What are your thoughts? C. Hello, Peter. Good to see you again, my friend. C. LinkedIn user B. Spark C. Any more for any more? Got a couple of A's. I think there's a delay here, guys, because I'm seeing comments coming through. Let's see. Okay. All right. Okay. All right. So, all right. So actually the answer is B. 67% versus 18%. So projects with highly mature, engaged sponsorship have about 67% success rate, while those with immature or absent sponsors succeed about 18% of the time. Now look, loads of you have said C, which is actually telling, right? It tells you and everyone else that's listening how important leadership is. Why is actually one of the key components of successful project delivery. Now, I talked about how important projects are for firm success and for the ability for a firm to survive, especially in downturns. But the thing to remember is that most organizations are not optimized, right? They're not optimized for delivery. They're not optimized to go quick, okay? So a lot of the times, firms are stuck by the way that they're operating, okay? But as you guys have all figured out, leadership is super important, absolutely critical to this. Okay, so we know this doesn't work. So this pyramid, this kind of organizational structure doesn't work. This is leaders putting pressure on managers who are putting pressure on teams. This is where that thing comes from. Stuff rolls downhill, right? Pressure rolls downhill, okay? And ultimately, this doesn't help anyone deliver anything, okay? So this approach doesn't work. And over 25, 30 plus years, we found that we've got to do something different. So we found this. An organization is actually the opposite of a house or a building. The foundation is at the top. So we need to invert the pyramid. And when you do this, you start to see things changing. So if you've been in any kind of project or program role, you know that engagement of senior leaders is probably the most important factor. I mean, we've just been talking about how important it is, the statistics, the research. Your experience shows that leadership teams, senior leaders are essential for firms to deliver rapidly and are even more essential when things need changing fast, okay? So leaders are the foundation of the firm. They need to come with a strategic focus. They need to own results, own outcomes. Regardless of who's delivering it, the senior leaders need to own the outcomes and they need to be fully engaged to get the best from their people, okay? Now, that up arrow suggests that leaders will support their management structures. Now, management structures supported by solid leaders, right? Solid, when I say solid, I mean empowered and engaged leaders can enable managers to do what they do best, okay? So we're not just talking about managers that don't know anything. We're talking about people that know how to deliver. They understand the organization, right? They know how to get things done, all right? They're smart, they're focused, they're well-educated. They understand all the different types of delivery mechanisms. They understand the business context, and they understand how they can best support their teams, okay? Great management teams are organizational engineers. They're relevant and they're needed, okay? And this is very different from the kind of rhetoric that you hear, which is, hey, managers are evil, managers are horrible, we don't need managers. Great managers are needed. They're relevant and they glue strategy to execution. Everyone remembers the best manager. Everyone remembers the manager that taught them stuff. Everyone remembers the guy or the girl that helped them overcome real delivery challenges, and they talk about them to this day. Everyone does. That's who you learn from, okay? Great management teams move from controllers to catalysts, right? They enable stuff to happen and they're absolutely needed. And when you start to think about management teams like that, what you start to do is you start to unlock management performance and start to thaw out the frozen middle, all right? And finally, that then means that you have great teams, right? And teams are not just religious zealots. We're not talking about guys that just focus on agile or just, you know, it's just going to be agile or it's just going to be lean. We're talking about teams that are master planners, master builders, have a strong focus on risk and are determined to deliver, okay? When teams are supported by strong managers who are in turn supported by strong leaders, you start to get this acceleration, okay? You start to get project delivery, which happens on time every time. All right, I'm getting an here that I need to go a bit quicker because I've got a few more slides to get through. Okay, so we like to think of, instead of the inverted pyramid, we like to think of the digital tree as an approach, all right? Mission from leadership teams forms the root of the business, management of the trunk. They are the guys that connect strategy, right, to execution, and mechanics of the teams themselves, okay? Mission, the mission focus is about strategic focus, owning the results, empowering your people. Management's about connecting strategy to execution and keeping delivery moving. And mechanics is about eliminating delays, risk, combining proven methods to get things done. Okay, this isn't rocket science, guys. A lot of you guys know this. What it is that what you don't have is you don't have stuff, or you don't have a framework in your business that makes this thing live. Okay, so what happens when you start to do this? What happens? Well, if you've got a mission layer, right, which is your senior leadership team that is strategically focused, right, maintains ownership and accountability, right, and is fully engaged, you then start to see this kind of virtuous cycle where they're engaging with proactive, knowledgeable catalysts from the management space and managers who know how to make the organization change, flex, and move to help their delivery teams deliver, so to speak. And then you get on the mechanics there, you get expert planners, master builders, risk managers, delivery obsessed people that want to get things done. And so what you get this virtuous cycle. You get success upon success upon success upon success. Okay, so this is a project delivery approach that doesn't just put a band-aid on problems. Okay, it transforms the way your firm is aligned and helps you deliver your projects in 90 days or less. Okay. What we tend to find is that, as I mentioned before, that 100% acceleration is just the limit, right? Even that people tend to find is crazy. But when you start to do things like this, you will start to see acceleration happening by default, right? It's about building a delivery system that really helps your organization be aligned to gain value out of the door, right? Okay, and again, look, this is systematic. It's not piecemeal. It's not just, hey, we're going to do one layer and then forget about another. Because we've heard and we've seen that when you do that, the system unwinds it. Okay, and things will start and then they'll stop, and you won't get that. You won't get the stuff that you need. All right. Okay, so to do that, then there's 6 principles. Okay, that we like to take teams through. Minimum 6 principles. I don't have time to go through all of them. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to just focus on the 3 principles here, okay, that are really going to help you guys move the needle, right? So as I mentioned, we've all seen those abdicating responsibility, Teflon shoulder leadership teams. We're trying to eliminate that, okay? Okay, so let's start from the top then. So we've seen key leaders have an absolutely intense strategic focus. All right, so leaders that work in the space and take their jobs and their roles seriously absolutely connect purpose to delivery. Right, so they do not deviate from the strategy right to the project. So there should be a straight line between what we're trying to do as a firm and the project and the ROI that we're getting. Right now, that's not earth-shattering. Most good leaders will do that. Okay, they're going to do that. Now, what is a bit more earth-shattering is firm-wide WIP. Well, what does that mean? WIP, for those of you who are in the lean space, means work in progress. Okay, so focus doesn't just necessarily mean, hey, what are we going to do? It also means, what are we not going to do? What are we not going to do? Okay, leaders absolutely need to know what the firm is capable of delivering. And this is actually probably one of the toughest challenges that leaders have. Limiting work. Why? Because most leaders are taught that they should be constantly pulling out as much capacity from the engine, right? They should be pulling out as much delivery capacity from the engine. So they're constantly pushing, do more, because they've been told that that's their job. But actually, smart leaders don't do that. What they'll do is they'll look at, well, how many projects did we deliver last year? And what about the year before that? What about the year before that? Okay, what's the trend? If the trend is, on average, we do 30 projects every single year and we deliver them like clockwork, then why are we trying to do 100 right now? Okay, why are we trying to do 100 right now? We shouldn't be trying to push out 100 projects if we know that the organization can only bang out 30. Okay, so that's a super important concept that most leaders will agree with, but find very, very tough to do. Now, actually, too much work in the system, as in doing too many projects or doing too much, causes good people to fight for limited resources, limited budget, limited talent. Good managers, good teams become, for want of a better word, villains, because they have to fight their peers for those limited resources. You know, if we don't get the budget, if we don't get the resources, if we don't get the talent, we won't deliver. And if we don't deliver, you know, our bonuses are affected. We are materially affected. My teams are affected. It's just going to be a horrible year. Okay, so if you're a leader, you're going to fight tooth and nail to get those limited resources. So actually, a small thing like doing far too much in a firm causes terrible bad behavior. Okay, and those leadership teams, those management teams, that are trying to support and protect their teams, they're just good people trying to do a job. Okay. So leadership teams need to start to think about, or senior leaders need to start to think about, how do we grow delivery capability in an empirical, data-driven way? And that's the execution piece that we're talking about at the end, all right? What are the things that stop us? Okay, we're not going to go from 30 projects and programs to 100 projects overnight. But if we add 1 or 2 or 3 or 4 or 5, what are the constraints that are stopping us? What's the execution gap, and how do we manage that without tanking the rest of the business? Okay, so that's what I mean by strategic focus. It's not just about knowing what to do and connecting it to strategy. It's knowing what not to do. We should only be delivering the projects with the highest ROI that absolutely move the needle. Okay, and then once we've done that, we then move on to the next thing. It's not about starting stuff. It's about finishing stuff. Okay, so that's really what it's about. That's what I mean by strategic focus. Ownership, absolute accountability. Like, we've all met those leaders. Right, we've all met those senior leaders that are all about those Teflon shoulders. Okay, something goes wrong, it's Bob's fault. Someone's telling the truth, they get murdered. Okay, they get crushed first. They're always about shooting the messenger. They don't want to hear bad news. Bring me solutions. Bring me solutions. But the point of being a solid leader, the point of being a stakeholder, is that you have access to resources, knowledge, and experience that your teams and your managers may not have. Okay, so you must absolutely own the outcome, regardless of what's going on. Okay, it's about absolute accountability, regardless of what your teams deliver. It's on you. You are the guy or the girl that is responsible for those outcomes. Okay, and it's not about excuses or blame. Okay, it's about learning what is the challenge, figuring out the constraint and fixing it, and finally leading from the front. Model the behaviors and standards and work ethic that you, as a senior leader, should expect from your teams. If you're not modeling it, your teams aren't going to do it. Okay. And finally, full engagement. This is about being visibly present. It's not enough to send memos and PowerPoints and emails. You have to be around. You have to be around. You have to listen to your people. You have to over-communicate where you're going and what the challenges are and how you're going to fix it. You have to give credit to people when they're doing things well. You have to own the mistakes, meaning if something's not going right, you cannot blame people. You've got to figure out what in the system is stopping us from going at the speed or the pace that we want to. And then finally, it's on you to actively remove those challenges and those frictions. Okay, that's the point of being a senior leader. All right, now those three principles are pretty much the core capabilities that we've seen CEOs, CTOs, CROs, senior directors own. Most great managers have those capabilities. And we found that with these three elements or these three principles enacted, you start to see the acceleration piece. You start to see things moving in the right direction. And again, as I mentioned, there's a tool set that comes with this. You know, in the 15 minutes I've got at the moment, I won't be able to go through that, but that's kind of what it's about. Alrighty, so why do the work? Why do the work? Why would a leader do the work? Why would they do those things? Well, the fact of the matter is, doing the work, doing those things and behaving in that way is extremely profitable. Okay? It makes the business money. It provides benefits. Financial performance goes up. You're able to get things out the door. Okay? Because you are focused, you've got strategic clarity, you've got focused execution, you're reducing operational costs. Okay? You're eliminating inefficiencies. You're helping your people, right? You get faster project complete. You get value out the door. Hopefully that comes with increased revenue or at least learning. So financial performance goes up. Operational excellence goes up. Employee engagement goes up. You guys have been on LinkedIn, so you tend to see people going, hey, you don't fire jobs, you fire bosses. Okay? Great bosses, great leaders, keep people. Okay? It's profitable for the business. It's great for the business. It provides an ROI. And culture is the best type of strength that any business can have. It's the ultimate when it comes to strategy. If you've got a great culture where people are watching you deliver and own stuff, and they start to do that, you start to see a business that's all about execution and value delivery. And that obviously impacts your market position. So we found that these behaviors are absolutely profitable for a business. So cynical or not, okay, evil leader or not, the fact is this: if you engage in the behaviors that we're talking about, if you engage in those principles that you're talking about, you will start to see a business improve its ROI. Okay, so just quickly to touch on, right, there is two more layers. We have a management layer, which I won't be able to go into today, and we have a mechanic structure, okay, that we won't be able to go into today. But hopefully what I've talked about on the leadership side of things absolutely makes sense. So what I'm going to do is this. I do have, actually I'm on time, which is good. I do have an offer for you people that have stayed to the end, okay? So I did say that if you stay to the end, then there's a couple of things that we're currently offering. Now, one of the things that we do when we engage with clients is we do something called the Accelerator Workshop. And what this is, it's a deep dive with a client. So it's you and your team to look at what are the challenges that your delivery process is currently facing, okay? What are the things that are stopping you from moving faster? Now, what you get out at the end of this is a map, right? You walk away with a bespoke execution plan to supercharge your delivery processes and your projects, okay? You get clarity about what the challenges are, you get a direction, and you know the sequence of attack, and you get confidence in next steps. And the offer that we're giving is it's a full day internal workshop. So it's for a client. We only do 5 of these normally. It's free for anyone that's on this call, and it's an in-depth analysis of your strategy. And it's, we provide you our toolkit to help you go quicker. It's completely complimentary. There's no money needs to change hands or anything like that. And we found this to be a game changer when it comes to helping firms move forward. Okay. And we've seen, we've got here one of the heads of products. We worked with a large insurance firm, just doing a day with these guys on their key projects and programs, help them figure out where the critical challenges were and what they needed to do to turn them around. Okay, it's super practical, super hands-on, and the idea is that at the end of it, you get something that works for you and something that you can actually execute straight away. Now, best way to get to that, by the way, is to scan the QR code and book in a discovery call with me, and I'll have a chat with you, and we kind of work out how we can help you, or DM me on LinkedIn Discovery, and we'll set up a call and we can go from there. So, right, so here we go. Finally. So, scan the QR code or DM me Discovery and we can set you up. And what I'm going to do now is in the next 10 minutes, we're going to kind of walk you through. I'm going to open up for questions. I'll take a couple of questions and then we'll call it there. By the way, if I haven't gotten to your question in time, please don't worry. You can DM me or you can email me. One of my team has probably shared my email address, and I'll be more than happy to get on a call and answer any kind of questions or challenges that you might have. All right, so with that, thank you. I'm going to just go back to, you're going to see me. And if you've got any questions, just chuck them in the chat and I'll be more than happy to, in the next 5 minutes, I'll be more than happy to go through them with you. So I've bamboozled everybody. Well, I've done such an amazing job that there's no questions. So also, by the way, if you want a copy of the presentation and some of our frameworks, please DM me and I'll get that sent over to you as well. So you can get a copy of the presentation and the frameworks. Okay, so why do you think companies find it hard to find their firm WIP or even know it at the top of their head? So that's actually a great question. What I tend to find is that most organizations aren't focused on WIP. And although it's so obvious, we teach our teams about work in progress and the negative effects it has. Most senior leadership teams aren't trained to think in that respect. What most leadership teams are about is about trying to pull as much content as much progress, push as much value through the system, okay, as they can. But the challenge is that normally overwhelms teams. Okay, the idea is that you can't be pushing things through an engine that's designed for a specific kind of flow. So it's mainly awareness and training. It's absolutely obvious to most leadership once we talk about it, and actually tends to trigger the right conversations. But as I said, very few firms think this way. I don't know any leaders that will talk about this unless they've been exposed to these sorts of concepts from the beginning. So it's a very simple fix. Hard to do sometimes because leaders don't understand why you want to do it, but yeah, super powerful. You're welcome, Peter. It's been absolutely Pleasure seeing you again, my friend. We need to find some time to catch up. So why do you think we never learn? Actually, I tell you what, one of the things that I've seen is that when it comes to strategy and closing the execution gap, I think most senior leaders tend not to have a how-to. They tend not to know how exactly do I close this execution gap? What exactly do I need to do? All right. So we talked a bit about getting mindset. Most people believe in collaboration as an example, right? I don't know any leader that says, yeah, we don't need to collaborate. But just collaboration, you've got to be like, well, what am I collaborating about? Who needs to be there? When do I need to do it? How often do I need to do it? Right? How do I do it? Who else needs to be there? What do I do with the actions? That's just thinking about collaboration, right? How do I fix mistakes? How do I get it right? How is a lot of the times missing. So I tend to see that most leadership teams don't really understand how to get the job done, right? They don't understand they don't really understand the execution strategy, and they don't know what else they need to be doing tangibly to get it done. They go to loads of these. I mean, I've been to loads of mindset trainings, leadership mindset. It's all the rage at the moment. But when it comes down to it, the actual execution piece is missing. Okay. One question: how do we counter the leadership ego that detracts from outcomes or engagement? So one of the reasons I put up that why slide is because we come across that all the time. You come across senior leaders who have big egos. They've been told that they're amazing, and there's nothing for them to learn. Right? There's arrogance there. And so, by articulating the fact that these behaviors, these approaches, these how-tos are profitable and will positively impact the business's future direction, profitability, and market position. Okay. These are the things that is the difference that makes the difference. If you know that your firm can be 20%, 30% more profitable, that you will reduce your churn, as an example, your employee churn by 50% just by doing these things. Well, now your bottom line is being impacted. We've not met very many leaders that decide that, do you know what? I don't believe the research. Yeah, we've got 13 years of experience working across the space. There's lots of research being done by loads of people around leadership behaviors and how it impacts a business and its profitability. So the data is there. So when you present this to senior leaders who want to do well, regardless of their ego, they'll start to think differently about their behaviors. The most important piece is that the way you act has a material impact on your business. If you're employing the wrong strategy with your people and with your execution, you're going to negatively impact your business. Very few senior leaders are averse to becoming profitable or more successful. So that's one of the best ways to basically help engagement happen. What does your approach have to offer for startups who only have a business plan, strategy, and the core team in place? And so Navinda, your question has been cut off. So business plan, strategy, and the core team in place. I think that's probably a question around, how do you, and the whole point of this approach is to close the execution gap, right? So once you've got the strategy and you've got the teams that can deliver, what do you need to do to close the execution gap? So we probably need to have a bit of a conversation, because you don't need everything. You need a few principles that you can operate religiously. Okay, you push them through hard, and what will happen is you'll start to see execution going out to market. If you're a startup, the most important thing that you've got to do, right, is you have to test your hypothesis. You have to get your product out to market, or some semblance of your product out to market, to get customer feedback, to validate whether you have a product that hits market fit or not. Okay. And if you've got market fit already, then it's even more imperative that you get your product out and start making sales, because if you don't make sales, your business is going down the pan, and you definitely won't get any kind of VC funding. So it's very, very important. Execution, acceleration, project delivery is absolutely necessary for any kind of business, from startup to scale up to enterprise. Okay. Okay, brilliant. Okay, guys, I've got 2 more minutes. I've got 2 more minutes. So if you've got any more, if you've got any more questions, let me know. All right. Okay, guys, I think we'll call it there. Once more, any questions at all or any kind of challenges or concerns or anything that you need to know further, please DM me, ping me an email. I'm more than happy to get onto a call and have a chat. And if you're interested in the Discovery, the Accelerator workshop, again, please DM me or use the Calendly link and we can go from there. It's been an absolute pleasure talking to you guys. Really appreciate the questions. DM me and I'll send you the slide deck, no problem. All right. And hopefully I'll see you in 4 to 6 weeks for the management side of the next presentation. All right. Take care, everybody. Speak soon. Bye-bye.